Okay, so thank you for being here, for your interest in, hold on. It looks like I'm frozen up there. Okay. All right, so thank you for coming. And for those of you that are going to be listening afterwards, thanks for your attention. Um, we're going to be talking about yoga therapy for persistent or chronic pain today. And our upcoming program that we're going to be running starting October 15th, and it's going to be a 6-week program where we're going to explore persistent pain and different ways we can use our practices of yoga to find healing. And I'll tell you a bit about myself before we dive in. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Carrie. I'm an experienced yoga teacher, and I'm also a certified yoga therapist, working primarily with people that live with chronic or persistent pain, helping them to find ways to live better. Um, I am passionate about helping people with pain because I have also lived with persistent pain for many years and had tried everything and was told to essentially just live with it. And this was in my early 20s. And um, shortly thereafter, I was encouraged to try out yoga. And I started to see changes in my body, in my stress levels, and in my ability to become more aware of what's really going on and find ways to find a little more ease. And instead of being in a cycle of treatment, chiropractic treatments every couple of weeks, they started to become extended the more I practiced yoga. And so from there, I explored teacher trainings and more recently, my persistent pain has been linked to emotional events and trauma. So, knowing that sometimes pain comes from an injury physically, and sometimes it also can be energetic and emotional. Um, and the tools that I guide through this program are all tools that I've used to help find healing in my own body to regain mobility and strength. And things that I use in my daily life, whether it's stress, whether it's an acute injury, or it's something that is hanging on, I use these tools regularly. So, um, we're going to talk a little bit about pain, and then we'll talk more about what to expect when we go through this program together. So if we were to use a definition of pain from the International Association for the Study of Pain, pain is an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage. So that's a lot. Pain is unpleasant because it's trying to get your attention. It's trying to tell you to change something, to stop or change your behavior. It's sensory and emotional because anytime we feel an increase in pain, it moves to both parts of our brain, the sensory, the touch, as well as the emotional. Um, it's associated with actual or potential tissue damage because pain is telling you when you might get hurt. So there's a window or a buffer between pain and actually damaging your body. So you can think of like pulling your finger back and okay, ouch, this hurts. But if I let go, I'm going to recover okay. So it's telling me I should stop probably doing what I'm doing. And probably the most important part of that definition is the word experience. So pain is an experience that is based on what's happening in the moment, but it also is based on what's happened in the past. It's based on environment. Where are you? Who are you with? It's also based on future worries, concerns. So it's so complicated. It isn't one thing, especially when it moves from acute injury towards hanging around persistent. And so persistent pain is technically anywhere 3 to 6 months post-injury or anytime after your healthcare practitioner has said the tissues should be okay. Um, so some of us have a tendency to push through pain and just kind of move through things, and others have a tendency to stop moving or to hold back for fear of more injury to the tissues. Um, and sometimes we do both. It depends really on the situation, on what's going on. Um, so with persistent pain, there isn't one cure or one remedy for persistent pain. What we've discovered through practice and through the lived experience of people that we work with is that it is very much a combination of things. And it becomes practice. So it's not going to a practitioner and getting uh, that shoulder addressed and everything is fine. It's finding ways to calm the nervous system so that we feel safe, so that we can start to slow things down, reconnect to our bodies, and find ways to move that feel safe. And when we feel safe, the body will let us move more. Body-brain connection will let us move more. And so when we can practice more often, tools to regulate the nervous system, to move our body safely, then we can find some relief. But it does become very much a practice. So not once a week, not once a day. It's something that we incorporate into our daily life, these tools that we will be working on. And so yoga therapy for persistent pain, or sometimes we call it pain care yoga, um, is not just about yoga. It's also science and learning pain science, which um, for me was probably the hardest part in the beginning. But when we can get an understanding for what's really happening in our body and our nervous system, um, we we better understand what's actually happening versus um, the unknown. It can also be really empowering when we're like, okay, now I understand what's really happening here, and I'm maybe not going to go down that rabbit hole of what I thought I knew based on what I've learned growing up or what have you. So um, we'll learn how our body protects us in various ways. So body tension, breath holding, negative thoughts, and how we can start to change those reactions so that we can find some relief. We're going to work a lot on gaining awareness. So for many of us, we go straight to trying to fix whatever the issue is without noticing, well, what's really going on? So am I breathing? Is my tension really high? We know that short breathing and body tension are also contributors to persistent pain. So how can we change those through regulation, through regulating our breathing, through finding ways to move our body that feel good, feel safe? And so we'll be working with a system called the movement guidelines. And these movement guidelines help us determine um, help us better understand our own bodies and what we're capable of and when is too much. So sometimes we'll go to a public fitness class or a yoga class, and we'll be nervous because we're not sure, okay, if I overdo it, am I going to pay for this later? Am I going to be in bed for 2 days or really sore or really fatigued? So how can we get to know ourselves and know when is enough? So we'll work on moving in ways that feel good. We'll get to a place where we'll start to move in ways where we're starting to challenge ourselves as long as it feels safe. So we're always working to increase the evidence of safety in our body and our brain so that the nervous system is not on high alert all the time in protecting us. So um, we'll learn a combination of, or the importance of combination of rest, challenge, and respite. So we need to take time to calm our nervous system, to slow things down, but we also need that challenge piece. If we're never working towards challenging the tissues, we aren't able to get stronger. So it's really about a combination, and that's where I'm here to support you as we go through. So with yoga or therapeutic yoga versus going to see another healthcare practitioner, this program is not in place of seeing your regular practitioner. So if you're going to see a physio or a chiro or whatever that support person is for you, or people, sometimes we have teams of people, this is to go hand in hand and help to just make everything fall more into place. So in yoga and therapeutic yoga, we look at the whole person. So we look at the experience of what brought you here. We look at things like, how are you sleeping? Are you drinking enough water? How's your stress level? All of those things factor into things like persistent pain. How are we doing so far? Are there any questions? You're good? Okay. Feel free to ask questions at any point. As well, if you're uncomfortable seated as you are, feel free to move around at any point, readjust so that you feel better. Um, so specifically each week, we're going to start with a centering or a grounding. We will spend some time going over pain science. Um, Maybe you'll find it interesting. I found it, I was like, okay, now I understand why it's important. Sometimes that's the missing piece in people getting beyond persistent pain. So not knowing the why. Um, we're going to explore lots of different awareness practices. So things like breath awareness, body scans, body awareness, regulation techniques, so various different breathing practices and movement as well, and how movement can help us regulate. And some classes will be more restful. Some classes we will work on challenging and moving to the edge of challenge together, but it will also be very individual because each of us have different stuff going on in our bodies and in our lives. So everyone will be met just as they are. You can take the class from home, from the studio. You can be seated, lying down, standing. You can change your positions. And there may be times where you just need to rest. So we can use visualization instead of movement. So really, we want to take care of ourselves as we move through. We will also talk about some yoga philosophy, which is an important piece and where it can be different from seeing other practitioners as well. So talking about the yamas and niyamas, which are um, the guidelines or practices in order to live better. So it's how we are in the world and with ourselves. So like ahimsa, which is non-harming. So how do we speak to ourselves? What do we put into our bodies? How do we move in ways that feel good? Are we pushers? Do we push through pain? And so talking about how yoga philosophy can also be helpful in our healing. Um, you will receive handouts. You'll be emailed them in advance, and I will also have copies for each of you. And this is just areas if you want to write stuff down, make note of the practices that you like, so that you can do them again at home. And these practices that we do together will all be recorded. So I'll be taking audio recordings and I will post them somewhere so that you can go and get them and try them again. Because as I mentioned, it's not just coming to a class once a week and expecting everything to change. It's learning the tools so that you can incorporate them into your daily life and make those changes through practice and dedication. So you will have access to all of those practices, and there will be some movement practices and sequences that I will also record so that you have them. And those will be separate recordings from the actual class. So I will record myself teaching the class so that if you have to miss one, so 6 weeks can be a big commitment for many of us. And so if it's, oh, I can only make it to 4 live, well, that's okay. You can catch up. And you can always reach out with any questions along the way. Just want to make sure I haven't missed anything. So sometimes I'll get questions around whether this is for specific pain conditions or injuries, and it is not. It is for anyone in all forms. We look at pain as pain, and we are all going to feel it differently, regardless of whether it's the same injury or condition. It's how we can get to know ourselves and use the tools that feel best for us, and how we can start to find some relief from there. What to bring to the class would be a yoga mat, any props that you like to use. Of course, at the studio, if you're coming to join us, we have all the props here. Water. I'll have pens and stuff for you. And just wear comfortable clothes. And so we're going to try out just a little practice. And this is a subtle body practice. And when we say subtle body, it means usually something gentle and breath or relaxation related. So you don't have to move around. In the program, we will have movement practices. So we'll also, I should say, as it relates to movement, we will also have lots of modifications. So you aren't expected to come into a warrior two necessarily. It will be based on what the class is moving towards, what each individual is moving towards. We can do variations on the floor, in chair, lots of things. So I'll be met where we are. Okay, so we're gonna start by just taking a comfortable position. So if you're seated and you feel like you want to move around, you can do that. If you prefer to lie down, you can do that. And at any point, you can change your mind. And so this particular practice is going to be a breath and a body awareness practice. And so as we do this, just notice what comes up for you without any expectations. So there's no right or wrong or good or bad. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes or softening them towards the floor, you can do that. And just bringing your awareness now towards your breathing. Just notice the breath moving in your body, the breath breathing the body. And start to notice where you feel that movement as you take a breath in and as you breathe out. You don't need to change your breath or breathe a certain way. Just notice. Where do you feel movement as you breathe in and as you breathe out? And now bring your attention towards the top of your head, breathing in and breathing out. And start to scan your whole body from the top of your head, moving slowly down towards the bottoms of your feet. Just noticing. Nothing to change, just observe. Breathing in and breathing out. Starting at your feet this time, start to scan your whole body from the bottoms of your feet all the way up to the top of your head. And take as many breaths as you need to mindfully scan your body, dividing your attention between your awareness of the breath and your awareness of the body. Staying present with your breath, staying present with the body. Notice where you're feeling the inhales move through your body, and notice where you're feeling the exhales move. You might also notice where there's no movement, staying aware and present. And try to notice now if the breath is moving into your belly. Does it rise and fall or expand and soften with the breath? Notice the breath moving through the ribs. Does it move into one side more than the other? Perhaps it's the front ribs versus the back. Just noticing where there's movement through the ribs. Notice movement through the chest. Staying present with your breath for a few more moments until you feel ready to let it go. You might need to adjust the position of your body. And so that particular practice was purely awareness. So we're just noticing without trying to change anything. And sometimes the act of just noticing can be enough to make some subtle changes in what's going on. We can also move into regulation where we start to change things. And that's where we try to breathe a certain way, or we can find movement that we breathe with. So let's try that briefly. And so as we do find these movements, if anything doesn't feel safe in your body, leave it behind. You find a range of motion that supports you today, and rest whenever you need to. So we're going to sit up tall. You could also be lying down if that feels better. And so we'll take a breath in, and when we breathe in, we'll take the shoulders up, and they might already be up. And then when we breathe out, soften the shoulders back down. So we're trying to find a slow rhythmic breath. Inhale, shoulders up. And exhale, slowly draw them down. Good. A long breath in through the nose. And a long breath out from the nose or the mouth. Soften the tension. Release. Let's just do one more. Inhale. And exhale. Good. Stay with that rhythmic breathing. And now we'll change the movement from shoulders now to one arm is going to reach up to the height that feels good today. And then we exhale to float it back down. And so you can choose to alternate or stick with one side, especially if you have stuff going on in one shoulder or one arm. But a soft breath in, a soft floating of the arm, and a soft breath out. Moving in a range of motion that feels safe to explore today. Finding a slow breath. And see if you can keep the body tension low. So notice if you're gripping through your jaw, through your shoulders, or elsewhere, and try and soften. Good. And we'll just do one more on each side. A slow breath in. And a slow breath out. Good. Last one. Good. Find some stillness. Pause. Notice. Notice the pace of your breath. Notice if anything has shifted in attention. Maybe some of the holding or gripping has softened. At any point, if you need to move your body and let that go, you can do that. Good. So that's an example of regulation using movement. And so we'll explore various practices in each session. There will be time also to talk a little, and sometimes just being within community and talking to people that are experiencing similar stuff can be really helpful. Um, so just a reminder, through the 6-week program, we're going to be working on how to move our body when we have persistent pain, moving in ways that feel safe. We're going to explore movement and breath practices to calm the nervous system and reduce our pain. We're going to empower ourselves with knowledge around science of pain and what is chronic pain. We'll try and reduce perhaps some of the fears around movement, which can be holding us back from challenge. And you're going to be exploring with guidance. So I will be there with you along the way. And we'll be exploring how we can improve our mobility, our strength, and our confidence, building that up again. And as mentioned, there'll be recordings and handouts for practicing at home. I'll also be sending you resources for additional pain science if you want to read, or there's some audiobooks that can be really helpful. There'll be recordings of the full session in case you have to miss them. And we will also be working towards what does it look like after this program? So now what? How do I do this on my own? We will have a plan template that we start to work on together that helps us map it out so that we are set up for success once the program is over. And we'll be practicing along the way over the 6 weeks. And so this starts mid-October, so October 15th for 6 weeks, and it will run from 10:30 to 11:30 in the morning. And if that time doesn't work for you, you can always watch the recording. And if you have any questions, I will stop the recording so that you can ask, and you can always reach out to me directly as well.